Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing Look Both Ways, written by Linwood Barclay. I've read a few Linwood Barclay books now. I do prefer his standard thrillers. His just normal thrillers. This is more of an action novel. And when I read this, I couldn't help but picture Herbie the Love Bug going psychotic and just mowing people down left, right and centre, because it's a book about cars that decide to kill people. Their computer programming goes haywire, someone writes a virus, they get infected, and then they decide to kill people. So the whole book is about people running away from these murderous cars. It sounds very much like an action movie. It's written almost in the vein like a disaster movie would be presented to us. And I had that feeling as well when I read this. I've got a sense the author wrote this just to see if it would be made into a movie, because even though I didn't really enjoy this read that much, I do think I'd still watch the movie. The book starts off with a really great hook, and it's really unfortunate because after this first chapter that really gripped me and drew me into the story, the rest of the story loses its way a little bit, in my opinion anyway. It's still an above average book, but not as good as this first section. In this first section, we have two people in a car. It's a smart car. It's driving itself. It goes haywire and it crashes over a cliff and they die. Then we jump a few years to the future and we have a new car company, a different car company, that's presenting their smart car, their self-driving car to the world. And what they're doing is they had people on Garrett Island, a small town on Garrett Island, and they gave everyone in this town one of their self-driving cars for a month. And they took every other car off the island, and these people just had to drive the self-driving cars. Then they were going to the island, taking all the press along, doing a big presentation, big song and dance event to unveil these new cars to the world. That's the whole premise of the story. Tagging along with the press is a strange guy in disguise. And we don't get a sense of who he is right at the very start, but we learn soon enough. And we learn that he was the person who used to own the other car company from the first chapter, that car that went over the cliff. He owned that company and he thought that this car company who's presenting their car now, he thought they sabotaged his cars. So he's out for revenge. He's got a plan to do something to their company to get his revenge. And that's where this whole action bit starts. He manages to get something into their computer systems somehow, their servers, to control all their cars, and infects all the cars, some virus. Somehow all the cars are still connected to some servers and to each other. They all get infected and they all start rampaging through the streets, through the whole island. And they start developing pack behavior, pack mentality. They hunt in packs. They're hunting people in packs, and they're very, very smart. Smarter than normal killers and thrillers, in my opinion, these cars are written to be. And that's where all the action scenes come from. But if this is written in the vein of a disaster movie, we have to have a central family, because disaster movies have that, don't they? They have a central family and usually one person separated from the family and have to go through all these dangerous situations to get to them or to rescue them. In this book, it's similar. We have one family. We have Sandra and her two children, Archie and Katie. Sandra is a single mum. Her husband died about a year ago in the past, before this storyline in this book, in a car accident of all things. So it's tied into the whole concept of cars and driving. Now, she is the PR person the car company hired for this big event. They wanted someone local. And she's telling her kids, stay home, don't get into trouble today, because her son's a bit of a troublemaker, gets in trouble quite a lot. Don't get into trouble, don't cause a scene, because I want today to go off without a hitch. She wants her kids to behave. Soon after she takes off, for this event, the son gets out of the house. Some of his friends come along. One of the friends has stolen his father's smart car. They get in that car and they go hooning around. Well, they don't go hooning around because the smart car doesn't drive dangerously at the very start. It's very sedate. It can't do anything dangerous to endanger human life. So they can't go fast, they can't do burnouts, they try to quite often, but they just act a bit juvenile, even though they're meant to be ridden. I'm not sure how old he really is in this book. They come across almost as like 10 or 11-year-old. I've got a feeling the author's aged them a little bit older than that, maybe 13, 14, but just their behaviour, the way they act and talk, the things they do in these scenes at the very start, seem to me more like they're 10 or 11-year-olds, in my opinion. So when all the cars start going haywire, Katie's at home alone. Sandra is at the event where all the cars are, or most of the cars are, for this big event. And Archie, with his friends, are driving to the mall. Archie and his friends get to the mall, then the car they're in goes berserk and rams into the mall, drives around in the mall after people, running people down. They can't stop it. They somehow escape out of the car, and then other cars get into the mall and they start hunting people in the mall. And that's where those scenes get a little bit over the top. We have these smart cars being able to drive up and down escalators. They're driving and hunting in stores. They're waiting around at the loading dock of a supermarket type store for people to get around there, try to escape. They're very smart hunting in packs in these scenes in the mall. Sandra witnesses cars going berserk at the big event. The first thing they see is a car injure somebody very seriously. I won't go into detail, and I won't go into her plot anymore because I don't want to give anything away about her storyline, because there's some really good twists in her storyline. So even though I didn't enjoy this book as much as his other books, I thought this book had a couple of good twists, especially towards the end. Katie's storyline, I think, is the most interesting. She's home alone. She wants to find her brother. She wants to get her brother back because she doesn't want to worry her mother. So she goes across to the neighbour, and the family thinks this neighbour's a bit strange, but she's been secretly spending time with the neighbour. He's an old retired teacher, and he's the only person on the island who's still got a normal car, because he had it stored in his garage and he never drove it because he lost his license. But he's been teaching her to drive this normal car. So they get in this car and they start hunting to try to find the brother. I don't want to give anything more away about Katie's storyline. It is the most interesting storyline in the book. I thought she's the most interesting character as well. But it's worth reading this book just for her storyline, in my opinion, because she's a great character and her storyline seemed well thought out. I don't know if the other storylines in the book, the other characters, seemed as well thought out. It didn't to me anyway. I just thought Katie's was the best in the book. For an action novel, I think this ticks so many boxes. We have big action scenes, we've got explosions, we've got crashes, we've got car chases, we've got big events happening, near-death experiences, cliffhanger moments as well in some of those scenes. So we've got huge action scenes in this novel, so it ticks all those boxes. I just wish there was a little bit more character development, but being an action novel, do we need really in-depth characters? I'm not really sure. I'm on the fence about that. I'd like them to be there, but there was there for Katie and maybe a couple of other characters, so maybe that's enough. Maybe in an action novel, we just need a few characters explored a little bit deeply, and some characters can be just shallow in the novel. And in an action novel, those scenes are more important. There's, heart in the throat scenes where you're just wondering what's going to happen. Are they going to survive in that moment? Maybe that's what an action novel needs more than good characters. And if that's the case, this novel ticks all those boxes. Sandra, the mother, and the PR person on the island. Look, at the start of the novel, I was really engaged with this character. She seemed really good, and I was just wondering where it was going to go for her. As the novel went on, she changed, and she wasn't consistent, and she became this action, hero woman. I didn't really like that for her in this novel, and I don't think it suited her character, because in the moment of all the things going on, I would have thought she would have been a bit out of her depth, would have been just too in your face, too confusing and too terrifying to see what she sees in this novel when all those cars go berserk. So it made me kind of lose that engagement feel with this character as the story went on, especially towards the end as well. So a good character at the start, not consistent enough for me in this book. Katie, Sandra's daughter, I thought was the most consistent, and she had the best storyline in my opinion. She's a really good character, and I thought she was the most courageous. She shows the most bravery in this book as well. And I like just her character growth. She had character growth in this book as well, and I like her journey in this story. I thought she was a really good character, and I wish the story would have focused on her more. Maybe if they make this into a movie, it will focus on her more, because her experiences in the story, I think, are the most impactful. Archie, Sandra's son, Katie's brother, look, he's written to be, this bad kid, this kid that's, going astray a bit. And that's forced on the reader. It's thrown in our faces so much in this book, so much so that it gets a bit tiring. I didn't really like his storyline. I didn't like his scenes very much, his action scenes, because it just seemed too over the top for the character. The way they were acting with his friends at the start, and then his action scenes, in the rest of the novel, it didn't gel. It wasn't consistent. He was acting much older in his action scenes than he was in the first scenes when he's playing around with his friends in the car. So it was a bit jarring for me as his character moved on through this story. I thought that should have been a bit more thought out by the author, because it just seemed he was young in the start of the novel, and then it just seemed he grew by many years in those action scenes. And what he does in those action scenes just seems too over the top for somebody his age. I didn't really believe it. So this character just felt a bit of a loss in the book for me. As an action novel, this ticks all the boxes. I do rate it a 3 out of 5. It's above average, and it is a good action novel. But for me, I prefer Linwood Barclay when he writes thrillers, just pure thrillers, because he's great at characters, he's great at twists, and he's great at writing good plots. The plot in this book seemed loose. That's why I rated it a 3 out of 5. The plot just wasn't there for me, and some of the characters weren't consistent through the novel. If the book focused more on Katie, I think I would have liked it more, because I did enjoy her character the most. She was the most engaging, the most believable, and she had good character growth. She had a great story arc in this book. On my channel, I do review other thriller action novels. If you don't want to miss out on those reviews, check out my channel and subscribe. There's also a thriller playlist on my channel. It should be on your screen now.